Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on another episode of Startup Talks. This episode is once again very special as I'm joined here today by Mr. Roberto Croci. He is the managing director for Microsoft for startups for Middle East and Africa. Before that, he has been with Google for almost 9 years, and he brings loads of experience with him advising startups and connecting dots between policymakers and startup founders and funding for startups too, right? So he's got lots of answers for lots of different questions. The most exciting thing about him, which I just found out, that he submitted the K2, so that's a pretty cool thing to know, right? So, Roberto, thank you very much for joining us on Startup Talks. How are you doing, my friend?
Very good. Thank you so much, Timur, for inviting me. And thank you for the introduction. I'm looking forward to our conversation with the audience as well. It's exciting times here in Dubai. We have the Expo live and a lot of traction and many events happening. It feels like going back in time before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of engagement. So
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to the conversation and sharing more about what we are doing in the region, perspective on the regional startup ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan as well, and looking forward.
Okay, that's great. So, what made you go to the K2? Which site did you submit it from? It was really surprising for me to read that.
Why you say surprising?
Because you don't get to meet a lot of mountaineers. You don't get to meet a lot of people who go that way.
No, yeah, you know what? I have this passion. So my father was a mountaineer. I mean, he took us every single summer to the mountains, right? So where most of the people were dreaming of going to the seaside, we were going the opposite side. So probably less traffic, but also a lot of hiking, trekking. So he never had the chance to go to mountains outside. Italy, but we also have some very high mountains in Europe, like Mont Blanc or Monte Rosa and Cervino is the three highest peaks
Mm-hmm.
in the Alps. So he spent his life going on top of these mountains, and he shared this passion with me. So I love that. So it's the reward you get when you get to the top, and that sort of silence or feeling that you have once you reach the top is kind of unique. So I went on the south side. So it was kind of a big effort. I mean, it was about 10 years ago, and I was definitely better trained. I have now two kids in the middle, and but still, with the COVID, it's a couple of good 2 3 years or 3 years almost that we are not going to the mountains with the family. But I hope the kids will also get the same passion for that.
Okay, we hope to host you in Pakistan. Pakistan, there's a lot of mountain climbing culture developing, and a lot of international climbers are visiting Pakistan every year. Now,
Amazing.
Roberto, coming to your forte, uh, why is the question why so important for startup founders to answer, in your opinion?
Look, it's very important. So it's very important because uh, once you have clarity of purpose, first of all, you have a direction, right? So you have a direction because as a founder, you know that through the journey you will have a lot of bozos or a lot of people out there that will try to get you down or will just not encourage you. So you need to fight all the time, right? So you need to, but if you have a direction, it's sort of your north star, your compass.
Yeah.
Uh, even if you need to pivot or you need to do some changes during the journey, you know that you're moving ahead because there is a purpose that inspires you, that is your motivation, your legacy, or call it whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I believe also there is another reason why the why is important. Is it's not just about yourself, right? So, and you cannot assume you are going to build your startup yourself alone in isolation, right? So first of all, your customers need to buy, there should be a willingness to pay and understand why they should use their product, but also your people, the first employees, right? So if you don't have clarity of purpose, you might end up creating a lot of confusion and a lot of efforts, but you're not solving for effort, right? You're solving for signal and not noise. You're solving for outcome impact and not just activities or effort or action, right? So purpose is also what can bring more people together with you in your journey. It's also what can help you frame the communications in your team and with your customers in a way where people clearly understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because when people understand why you're doing what you're doing, if they're your employees, they also know what they need to do, right? And why they're doing. So they also can give you that extra discretionary effort because they're inspired. And the same thing with your customers. It can be the first customers, it can be your advocates, to start growing your business. So I believe the why is important because the why can also give you the edge, the differentiator versus today we have a lot of ideas that seem the same thing, right? So why, in what sense one idea could be different from the other? And then you need to dig deeper and you really see that there is a purpose behind one versus the others are trying to be there in the business for a lifestyle or for purely the money, but not for a real purpose. So, and the purpose comes with, if you have a purpose, me as an investor can understand there is also a strong commitment there, right? Because this person is doing it not just for money. So when things go wrong, they might pivot or they might leave this and try to jump on something else. But because there is a real purpose behind it, he's really motivated by making the impact because he believes in that.
Absolutely, it's one thing not to be able to answer the why, but if you talk about startups, some startups they scale very fast, they expand, but they don't go beyond a certain region. At that time, if you copy an idea and you already have that answer to the why, then it's worthwhile. But if for startups, I totally agree with you. If they cannot answer the why, then it's better not to start up, isn't it?
But you see, you just mentioned something very important. You mentioned a lot of startups try to scale very fast, right? So that's for me the problem. Because when we talk about scalability, what a startup should scale the signal and not scale the noise. Because if you scale the noise, you amplify noise. If you scale the signal, you amplify. So if you start scaling, or if you are obsessed or stressed or focused on scaling at the wrong time, you might end up in a very bad situation down the line. So you need to understand, and this is what you're trying to do educating startups, is understanding, we cannot help a startup to find their product market fit because it's related to many things. But what we can help is helping the startup finding the truth about, when is the right time for them to grow. Because that should be a repeatable process. There should be a sort of a framework with a freedom in it, where we can guide startups through that journey, right? So scaling the signal and not the noise is important. So for startups, my advice is not to be obsessed about the scaling part of the business, is being obsessed about validating their idea with the customers, finding the right customers and the right segments to focus, but also start scaling at the right time.
In continuation to that, I was reading one of your blogs. I found it one quote very appealing, where you quoted Albert Einstein, that if I had an hour to solve a problem, and I would give 55 minutes to analyzing the problem and 5 minutes to the solution. So do you think startup founders falling in love with their product or their idea it can be a dangerous path to follow?
I believe so. I totally believe so. I think that the falling in love should be falling in love with the problem, not with the solution, right? That has nothing to do with resilience, right? So definitely, not all of the feedbacks that you receive is always good. Again, there is a lot of noise and a lot of signal. So you need to be able to distill, listen, validate, and test, experiment, right? So, but that has nothing to do with what you were mentioning. So a lot of founders have this sort of ego where they see a problem and they come up with this idea, the solution, and then their thought process is they switch it off, right? So they say, oh, I have the solution. And the problem with that is that maybe they're just scratching the surface of the problem, and they didn't go deeper to understand, look, that was a symptom. but not the real problem. So your solution can maybe find initial customers because there is maybe some traction there. But if you're not solving the real problem, that you cannot scale it to have an impact on the millions of people, because you are not really trying to solve for the real problem, right? So, and that's a big mistake. There is also this other mistake that sometimes founders end up believing that their idea is the idea, their solution is the solution. Again, nothing to do with the resilience. So one thing is being persistent, resilient, and believing in what you're trying to do and trying to make it happen. But at the same time, if that sort of thing becomes a sort of a slippery slope, because it can end up being a sort of a reality distortion, and you stop listening, or you stop, re-evaluating your solution, trying to fall in love with the problem, you just believe your solution is the best one, right? So, and that slippery slope can take this reality distortion to a sort of an exaggeration, where you amplify your solution as the only thing that can solve that problem, and the exaggeration can go down to a very bad path if you don't step back and realize, wait a second, what's the real problem I'm trying to solve? Is there a repeatable need? Is there a repeatable purchase or willingness to pay from customers? Is there what is the real pain? What is the need that these users have? And validate that, right? So falling in love with that and going deeper, 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, not just staying at the surface. And you see, sometimes we see a lot of copycats of business models that already proved successful elsewhere. Nothing wrong with that, right? But at the same time, where is the thinking about, we're facing many problems as a society. Take financial inclusion, financial literacy, take climate change, food, water, sustainability. Think about healthcare, which is more a sick care rather than a healthcare today, and so on and so forth, right? So there are many problems there. So there are opportunities there, right? So actually, we should see more entrepreneurs that spend more time on the problem space rather than on the solution space.
So, since that's the case, what do you think are the 4 or 5 important things to consider before starting any business in any space?
Look, first of all, I would say, if you're an entrepreneur, first of all, do you see a real problem, right? So, and then that we touch base on. The other thing is, what's your commitment to it, right? So, is it something that you're willing to, give your time, your reputation, your risks, whatever, to fight and to work hard to find solutions to that problem, right? So once you have your purpose, your why, it's also about a commitment that you basically make with that opportunity, and respecting that opportunity that you see, and a commitment of time. The other thing is, again, you cannot do it yourself. So how are you looking at building your support network, right? So who is around you to support you during the journey, whether it's mentors, whether it's people around you, family and friends that can help you get going, right? So on the get-go to build your prototype, or to get the first initial feedbacks, validations, and so on and so forth. Accelerators, incubators, other people that should be there to support you, because again, you cannot do things in isolation, right? So what's your support network? And then finally, there are many other questions around the timing and the where and the how you want to do your startup, right? So the timing and the where is important, right? So why you want to do it now? So why now is the right time? When you should start hiring the first people in the team? When you should start going and look for your initial round of funding. So there is this concept of time, right? That is very important. And sometimes the speed is a trap, because sometimes you see founders are too fast. They try to be too fast to try and get money, and too much money too fast. And they don't think about the consequences of that, like diluting their company, like taking on the cap table people that maybe are not opening doors for them. And then, you end up being in troubles. Or sometimes you're too slow, right? So if you don't try to get feedbacks very fast, then you might end up in a cycle, in a virtuous cycle, right? Where you you're not able to get traction, and the whole thing can fall apart. So there is this speed trap there, where is a paradox, right? So you cannot be too fast, you cannot be too slow, but you need to find a balance there. And you need to think through that before you start, I would say. And the other thing is a little bit the how you're going to validate your ideas, right? So building that culture from day one, even if you start yourself, still there is a culture there, right? So how you're validating your ideas, how you're going to find the customers, listening to the feedback and the customers, building a framework with a sort of freedom where you can be agile in terms of pivoting and reprioritizing and refocusing priorities according to what you're learning, right? So building this sort of testing experimentation culture, it's something that if you have not been doing before, probably it's something that is worth knowing before you start a business.
Yeah. Now, Roberto, moving away from the subject and coming on to analytics, because you've been looking at startups in the region, you're an expert at it. Where do you see Pakistan stand within the region, and what do you think how's the future outlook for Pakistan?
That's a great question. I mean, I see it as a great opportunity, and let me tell you why. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Some of the considerations. Let's take some of the data that we have, right? So the demographics, for example. So Pakistan is a country with a large population. We are talking about 200 million people, if I'm not mistaken, but also very young populations, right? So there are demographics that are interesting. Think about the maturity with tech adoption. So digitization is sort of a process with digital transformation that started in Pakistan, right? So yes, we are at the beginning of it. But if you think about it, if that process started, if more corporates are adopting more technology and investing in more skills in tech talents, that process has been kicked off, right? So it can only get better. It can only improve. At the same time, another thing I was talking about Pakistan is that most of the economy is still prevalently cash-based. Right? So if we just stop here, for example, what we have a very young population with more skills developed on tech, with more digitization happening across the whole economy, and with an opportunity to move from a cash-based economy to embrace digital and embrace all of this. So I see a convergence of things that are happening now and are there, right? So it's and they're there to stay. Combine this with the fact that we have seen the traction in the recent years and in the recent months, month over month, year over year, we have seen the investments pull into the country increasing. And I know personally, some people, for example, that have building beautiful careers in big tech companies in the US, for example, that just came back to Pakistan because they are saying the time is now. Because they see this opportunity and say, look, I have experience, maybe I put some capital aside, more capital is put into the market, and I see that it is an underserved market. But because of that, given that there is talent, that there is capital that is put into the market, and there is digitization happening, there are so many opportunities there that might happen. So in short, my take on Pakistan is that I see it with a long-term perspective as a land of opportunities right now, because you have talent in Pakistan, you have a society, you're facing problems as a society, digitization is happening, and the government is as well trying to push, of course, more adoption of entrepreneurship, of course, to have more economic growth and job creation in the country, right? So the indicators are there to say that there is a big opportunity there in terms of growth. There is a big opportunity in terms of new ideas, new startups that are created to disrupt, to accelerate the unit economics, and the multiplier factors are there. Because if you take Pakistan and UAE is definitely more advanced in building a startup ecosystem, being connected at the hub logistically, and so on and so forth for many other reasons, but still is a $10 million people country, right? So with 80% of the population that is expats. Again, in Pakistan, you have a large population, a real society, different problems, young people, talents, skilling, education, people that are willing to come back to Pakistan to give back because they got experience. So I feel all the ingredients are there. So probably on the policy regulation side, talking about government, there should be more adoptions of measures to encourage even more and protect even more entrepreneurs that are willing to start new businesses in Pakistan. There should be more mindset as well and more ambition as well to build products in Pakistan also to scale, internationally, export and going global with ideas. A little bit taking inspiration from what India has been in the last 30 years, right? So they started outsourcing IT processes long time ago, building talent, and now they're taking the outcomes, the fruits of what they've been investing into. So I feel Pakistan is at a stage where it can become mature very, very fast. Things can evolve very quickly, and the ingredients are there to see more development, more opportunities, and more startups, more founders that are building great products from that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Uh, Pakistan has a very big demographic advantage here because considering the Emirates, the population demographics are very scattered, but in Pakistan it's concentrated into one country. And yes, expats returning to Pakistan are playing a big role. The government is also easing policies for investments into startups. And on top of that, the Uber acquired unicorn Careem that has had a major impact because a lot of founders are from the Careem school, so to say, right? You might have come across them even in the UAE, right? A lot of them are based in the UAE too, and they're playing a major role here. Now, Roberto, so uh, what can Microsoft, what are Microsoft's plans for, of course, it's doing a lot of work in the region, but specifically Pakistan. What are the plans?
We have big plans. So what we want to do is we want to expand more partnerships in Pakistan because we believe that for the reasons that we shared before, there is a big opportunity, right? So we in the region we started operating a couple of years ago. And COVID hit, right? So I mean, it took a while to set up. Given the unique situation we have been living. But basically the mandate when I joined Microsoft was to build this new division from scratch, was build the strategy, setting up the team and starting and expanding across the whole region. So far we've been mainly focused on the UAE and Saudi, but now we have the bandwidth to start looking at broadly at the region and build more partnerships, right? So we believe that we can do a great thing because we can build a connected ecosystem, right? So we have a platform that can scale. Technology can scale. We have playbooks and experience in working with founders, startups, and take them to a next level. What we need to do when we enter a new market is we need to enable the local ecosystem to understand where we can fit in, what is the value proposition we add to startups, and where they can help us in this mission, because ultimately everybody will win, right? So whether it's with incubators, accelerators, with venture capital investors, family offices, or with government directly, or even academia. We are willing to partner with the key institutions in Pakistan to share more about what programs we have available, how we can empower their programs to be more successful, how we can give access to technology to founders, startups. And with access to technology, I mean not only the credits or licenses for Microsoft products, but also the support, right, to build great architectures, products that can scale, products that are secure, reliable, and so on and so forth, integrating with third-party apps, openness, and so on and so forth. But also, on the other side, giving access to markets, right? So what we want to do is enabling startups to build solutions that we can take to market together, because there is an IP there that can solve use cases, challenges that maybe our corporates, customers are facing. Right? Not only the B2C side, but also on the B2B side, there is a huge value proposition that we can unlock for B2B startups. So if you ask me what are our next steps in Pakistan, definitely is solidifying and definitely having meaningful partnerships with the key players, where we can really move the needle across the ecosystem to skill more people, onboard more startups, have more startups developing on good technology, building great products, but also teaching startups as well how to be more enterprise ready, how to go to market, and how to scale or think export and then put them in front of more customers so that we can hopefully accelerate their sales and growth.
I'm really excited about what you've just said, right? Because it's good to know that it's not just about renting cloud services, right? There's a lot more happening there, and it's good to know that Microsoft under your leadership is striving to make the ecosystem more enabling. So we've almost come to an end of time, Roberto. Thank you very much for joining us here on Startup Talks. It was a great learning experience for me, and hopefully we'll see you in Pakistan sometime soon. And if there is any way I could, in my own personal capacity, provide some input or extend a helping hand in Microsoft becoming a known entity in the region. Of course it is now, but with regards to startups and enabling them, right, I would be very happy to do that.
That's amazing. I take this as an invitation to follow up on this for sure.
Yeah.
We have a mentorship program, but we also have we are in need of people like you that can be advocate and can help us in this mission. So definitely looking forward to follow up on this with you and with other people that are willing, to take the Pakistani ecosystem to the next level, because I believe it's being built now. And that's what excites me of this region, is you see many things in the inception phase, and you can contribute to make something really impactful for the next generations as well, for youth, but also for entrepreneurs that are trying to build right now, right? So that's exciting, and definitely looking forward to work together on that.
That's great, Roberto. Great to know. And Startup Talks is also the reason behind it is the same, because it's a new phenomena in the country, and a lot of startup founders and other so-called players, right? They don't have any direction in which direction they should head into. So Roberto, thank you very much for joining us. It was great talking to you. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime, and we'll meet in person either in Pakistan or in the UAE then.
Looking forward, wherever it will be, looking forward to meeting you in person, hopefully visiting Pakistan soon. And I take also the invitation to some of the mountains there, because it looks, I saw some pictures for now for Pakistan, and it looks amazing. So looking forward.
Same here. Have a nice Thanksgiving then.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.